In the spirit of reconciliation, Up Past Bedtime would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the incredible lands in which we record this podcast. By extension, we pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, their past and present elders, and the connection they have to Australia's land, sea, and community. Hello and welcome back to Up Past Bedtime. I'm Bella Messina and I am going to be staying up late with you tonight. We are having a little bit of a break this episode, okay? Originally, I was meant to have scheduled in like a season break coming up in 2 weeks. And I was kind of looking at the process of this season, how everyone's been loving it. Like I've literally never received so many DMs about the podcast in my life. And I just sort of thought, I don't think we need a season break this season. Like I think everyone's happy to keep plowing on. I'm happy to keep recording with no break. I didn't know if people would feel like they wanted like a little bit of a breather. So anyway, I've decided we're not doing a season break anymore. And so I decided I wanted to squish in an extra episode into the season, and that is going to be this week, and it's going to be a little bit of a life update for me, okay? It's been a good couple of months since I've done a life update on Up Past Bedtime. I have quite a few things that I want to talk about, and I know that you guys love when I just yap, okay? That is my most listened to episodes, is when I just talk about my life in long form and share my opinions on things and just yap about myself, which I find very easy to do. So more than happy to oblige to all the beautiful listeners. Of course, like I think anything that I share, especially in this season of life, can help other women on their journey of, self-discovery and in a big season of change. Like that is my whole presence on the internet, is always about how sharing my lived experience can help someone else. So technically it does fit in to the season, but it is not going to be one of the 15 episodes in the pod course. So there's going to be no pod homework this week, which I don't know if that is really exciting or not for you guys. I actually did get a feedback in my DMs last week of someone saying like, hey, can you post the pod course homework or Mind After Midnight on the Instagram, because I listen to the episodes in the car and then I just forget until I'm listening to the next episode, and then I'm like, oh shit, I was meant to do some homework. So I'm going to start doing that all for you. But yeah, I just thought we could have a little catch up, a little yappity yap, and I could share on a few big things that I am kind of going through at the moment. Mostly I want to give you guys a big update on how co-parenting is going, on the process of my divorce, and then also on my current investigations into PMDD. So without further ado, let's just get into the life update. Welcome to season 3 of Up Past Bedtime with me, Bella Messina. This season, we're doing something different, something special. This is going to be a true exploration of womanhood, of reconnecting to who I am and who I want to be. We're diving deep into my journey of rediscovery and growth as I navigate motherhood, healing, and everything in between. This season, I'm inviting you to come along with me because maybe you're finding your way back to yourself too. This is our season to rediscover her. Think of this as our late night heart to heart, where nothing is off limits. Because as always, the best conversations happen when you're up past bedtime. I actually love talking about my life on a podcast. I find long form content or discussing like big topics in long form so much easier, and I just love being able to really get into like the depths of a topic, okay? Now, one of the biggest questions I am asked, no joke, probably every single day is, how is my co-parenting journey going? And to be honest, it's going pretty well. Like I have very few complaints about the co-parenting process. I am lucky in the sense that my co-parent is very dedicated to making sure that our children have a really happy, normal, stable upbringing. We are both on the same page when it comes to that. And when push comes to shove, because there have been parts in our like divorce process that have nothing to do with the kids, that have not been, all sunshine and rainbows. We are always able to put everything aside to prioritize our children. And I think we both above everything, really respect each other for that, because we both just are so locked in on being like, okay, the divorce is not our children's problem. It's not our children's choice, and it's not something they're going to have to endure, right? I think that comes really a lot from me, and I had a really hard time with my parents' divorce. It was very messy. I found it very emotionally stressful for me. I found it was not something that was kept between my parents. It really leaked into all like mine and my siblings' lives. And like, this is no news. Like, if my parents are listening to this, by the way, hi mum and dad, if you're listening, this conversation is not going to come as a shock to them. Like, they know that this is a reality of their divorce. I have had this conversation with them many times, but I really didn't like it. It gave me a lot of mental health issues. It made me highly anxious, as a late teen. It was a really difficult process. And I have always said that if my children got to a point where they were saying to me like, hey, your divorce, like obviously it's going to affect them in some way. But if they were like, it was really fucked and really mentally messed me up and like, I didn't think you handled it the way that you could have, I would honestly look myself in the mirror and be like, you failed as a mother. Like, that is something to me that is such a big point of like, I do not want this to be a problem with my children. I do not talk negatively about my co-parent ever in front of my girls. I'm very, very on board of them having a nice fostered relationship with both of us, okay? So when people ask like, how is the co-parenting bit going? It's actually going like pretty well. All right. It has just been my birthday. Like, I went away for my birthday weekend, which everyone was like, was your co-parent okay with that? And I was like, well, yeah, I didn't take them even out of the state. Like, they were only a couple of hours drive away and it was on my weekend. So I didn't really need like approval. But when I got to the Airbnb we were staying at, I actually like FaceTimed my co-parent and I was like, hey, like, I just want to show you around the house just for like your own peace of mind. Like, this is where they will be sleeping. This is, where I'm sleeping right across the hall. And I'm like, this is their bed set up and like, there's no access to like outside from here. Everywhere's gated. Everything's got, fences around it. There is a fireplace, but it's in this part of the house and it's not on right now. And when it's on, I'll be watching them. Like, I did all of that stuff just as like a sign of respect, because if he was taking them away, I would also hope that he would ring me and kind of give me a lowdown of like, hey, this is where we're staying. This is the vibe, because it is really stressful when your children are, with someone who's not you, away somewhere where it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not child locked and, anything can happen. Even though we are both very, very confident and capable parents, it's just a nice thing to do. So of course I did that. I told him like, here are all the other families that are coming. This is their, about them if he didn't know, because there was one family that I invited that he didn't know. So I was like, this is my friend Charlie and this is her son Archie and blah, 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 blah. And this is a little rundown about them. Like, just so he knew like, these are the people my children are going to be around all weekend and like sleeping in the same house as. And we are very good at like doing things like that. It's actually Benny's birthday in 2 weeks on the 18th of June. So in 2 Wednesdays time, by the time you guys are listening to this in 1 Wednesday time, okay? We have managed to really come together and find like a nice even ground for our co-parenting relationship for that. So we are doing a joint birthday party for Benny for our friends. So we're doing separate things for our own families, but we have a lot of friends that we are both still mutually friends with, right? And they have kids that our girls are friends with. Like, Benny's kind of at that age where she's a bit too young for like daycare friends. Like, she's starting to make some, but she doesn't have like really strong formed connections yet. So Benny's friends for like a party are the kids of our friends, if that makes sense. And that's like a mutual shared sort of thing. So we kind of had this discussion of like, hey, if we both want to do our own separate birthday parties, our friends either have to choose which one they want to go to or they have to celebrate Benny twice. And that's just kind of annoying. Like, I don't know, maybe this makes me a bad parent, but like going to one kid's birthday party is painful enough. Going to two, I would just be like, I'm not doing two parties for the one kid. Like, come on, this is insane. So we just had a conversation and I was like, can we just, do something together, invite all the friends together and then, people don't have to celebrate twice and then we can do stuff with our families separately. And luckily he was very much on board with that. We kind of just had a conversation of like, we'll just split it 50-50. We chose a place to like host it at, like an external venue, so that we didn't have to do it at either of our houses, agreed on like a guest list, agreed on a pricing. And that is this Saturday. When you guys are listening to this, it'll be like the coming Saturday. And there's honestly been no drama around it. Luckily, our friends are also very like relaxed, and they all kind of are fine like being in the same room as my co-parent and I together. Like no one has any like big beef where they're like, oh, it's too uncomfortable, because when we're around each other, we are very good at just like putting everything aside and being relaxed. Like we've done 30th birthday parties together. We've done weddings together. Like we still have a lot of mutual friends. So we're okay at like being in the same room together. Of course, we're not there like, oh my God, we're best friends forever. Like me and my ex-partner. Like, no, we are kind of just like polite, and usually we'll just stand on like opposite sides of the room and like just, you know, chat independently to people. But like if we have to do something together, like there is no like weirdness. Like when our daughters were the flower girls in a mutual friend's wedding and we were both there, like we both had to prep the girls together before the wedding, right? So we're like with, you know, parts of the bridal party for like an hour before the ceremony, like helping the girls get dressed, doing their hair, like all of that type of stuff. And it was honestly fun. Even my in-laws were there. There was no issues. Like there's no fighting, there's no nastiness, nothing like that, because the kids are there, and we're also very aware that like, you know, whatever's going on between us, it's got nothing to do with third parties, and they don't have to endure that. And we are very good at like holding that line, if that makes sense. So I'm not nervous about the party at all. I think it will be very uneventful. I was very, very chill as well, and was like, you know, if you want to bring your new partner, bring her. I have no issues with that. I think it would be really nice. Bring her along if you want to. Like in that sense, I feel like co-parenting, we are both very, very okay with, and we don't have issues. We actually had like a kindy orientation on the weekend, or like an open day where we could go and look at like one of the choices of the kindies we've got our oldest on the wait list for. And we did that together as a family. Like we talked about it and we're like, do we want to do it separately? And then we're like, you know what, like let's just take them together, get a vibe for it together. I ended up smacking my head on a massive tree branch when I was there, which was not ideal, but otherwise it was fine. I had a follower like message me after and be like, oh, we're at the same like kindy orientation. And I was like, oh, I wonder what the vibe you were reading from us was, because like we're obviously not like a lovey-dovey bestie couple, but otherwise it's fine. Like we can just have a normal conversation, talk about what we need to get done for the kids, and yeah, it can be usually pretty drama-free, which I am proud of for both of us. Now, every time I say this, I know people are always like, oh my God, I just like so respect how you guys are like so mature. I need to specify this every time. Our co-parenting relationship is probably the only relationship between each other that is relaxed and all like wavy gravy, good to go. Like if you talk to us about any other type of like interaction we have to have, or like whatever, it's not so mature. It is not so like easy breezy, beautiful. So do not be so like harsh and judging on yourself if you maybe haven't achieved that co-parenting relationship with your ex. It is very, very hard. And to be honest, and I'm sure it would be the same on his end, it takes a lot of just like grace, a lot of self-control, and sometimes, to be honest, a lot of just letting go. Like it takes a lot of, maybe I can do it because I'm very good at emotional suppression because I have autism, but it takes a lot of emotional suppression, right? When you're going in and in the co-parenting mindset, you just have to like bench everything else, push it all down, and just get in the mindset of like, okay, we're just co-parenting. Our children are here. This is for our children. Get it done. Be pleasant, be nice, smile, no need to fight. Everything's fine and dandy. And it's really hard. And I really hope that one day my children see that and recognize that and are appreciative of that, you know, when they're older. I hope they don't realize it when they're younger. I hope they just think like, yeah, mum and dad are great and everything's fine and there's nothing for me to worry about. That's the goal. But I hope one day, maybe when they're older and they reflect back on the situation, that they are very, very grateful for the amount of effort we have both put in. Like I said, I have honestly nothing bad to say about my co-parent in terms of parenting. You know, they are very much on the same page as me. We both have the same vibe. We both have the same goals, and we are both working towards the same thing. And I'm very, very grateful of that. On Bennie's actual birthday, which is a Wednesday as well, we are doing like a joint lunch with the girls. So we're going to do opening of their presents from both of us together, which will be really nice. So we'll just wait until lunchtime and then I'll give Benny her presents. He will give Benny his presents, and then we're just going to let her have like a play with the four of us. So him, me, Rosie, Benny. And that kind of came down to the idea of like, I really just wanted her to have normal childhood experiences, like opening your presents with your immediate family and, you know, having everyone there in the room celebrating you and making it really fun. Like one thing I've really stressed since separating is like, I don't want to have to do the whole like separate birthdays, separate holidays, like type of stress for the girls. Like I really would like them to feel like their birthday is their day, and instead of them having to accommodate other people on their birthday, i.e., oh, I've got to do this in the morning with mum and this in the afternoon with dad, I want them to feel like we're accommodating them on their birthday. You know what I mean? So I want them to feel like it's my birthday. Everyone can just like get it together for me. And same with like Christmas. So last Christmas, we celebrated Christmas morning together. Like we did Santa presents all together as a family, and it was really, really nice. And so I was like, you know, for Christmas and for birthdays, the two I think biggest ones, I would really like to be able to do them as a family unit for as long as we can. And I have said very honestly, if that means like you have a partner and the partner has to come, they are more than welcome. Like they are part of the family unit, and I'm happy to do those two holidays all together as one joint unit. Like that is so great and A-okay with me. I would love for it to be that way. Let's see if we can put things aside to make that happen. Look, is it always going to be that way? Maybe not. Maybe there will be times where we have to take a break, but my goal is that it is, especially while the girls are young. Maybe once, you know, they're out of the Santa stage and they're a bit older, they might not want to do that. They might go, oh, actually, I don't want to do that altogether. I'd rather it's separate. But for right now, like I want them to be able to go to school and talk with their friends about their normal birthdays and their normal Christmases and not have to do these big-winded explanations of like, well, my mummy and daddy don't live together, so I have to do that. I hated that stuff when I was younger. I hated it. So I'm really big on like not ruining special moments for the girls, because we, the meant to be emotionally regulated adults, can't just like be mature for 5 seconds, you know? I just kind of approach it like a professional setting, right? If you are in a workplace, right, and you don't get along with a colleague, there are still things that you have to do together as colleagues, right? Like team meetings or team events or whatever. And what do you do in those situations? You kind of just table, you know, your grievances and you make it work because you're in a workplace and that's your job. I kind of look at parenting the same way. Like I can have grievances with my co-parent, but at the end of the day, this is my job, and part of being an adult and having that job means putting things aside. And that is the mindset that I'm really appreciative that I think we both go in with, and both our families sort of go in with, and we just make it work as best we can for the happiness of our children. Forever, forever grateful that for everyone involved, the happiness of the girls is the number one priority. And my heart truly does break for mums and families who have people involved that don't think of that, and it makes me really sad for you. And honestly, I empathize with you and I understand how hard it would be to try and keep everything together and keep everything settled and satisfied and great, because it takes two to tango. You know what I mean? Like you can want all that you want in terms of like the co-parenting relationship. You can want, wish, dream, work towards whatever. But if the other person isn't coming to the table, you're just never going to get there. Like that's the reality of the situation, unfortunately. I really, really hurt and just feel for women who don't have that person who's willing to meet them halfway, even on the most basic level of like, for the children, they can't get it together. They can't, prioritize or care about that. And they just make your life hard. Please know that you feeling sad about that is so, so valid. You feeling frustrated about that is so, so valid, but keep doing the best that you can do. Keep prioritizing your children. And I really do hope and pray one day they will look back and be so grateful for that. I think I just have to remind myself is like they're children right now. One day everyone will be adults, you know? So just act the way that you would like if you were the child and you were looking back on your childhood. And I feel like that's all you can do. And if you can do that, you will be proud of yourself at the end of the day. So yeah, co-parenting is going pretty well. I can't complain. I'm touching wood. I hope there's no dramas that are, prop up after I have this episode. Although I've talked about this quite a few times on the podcast and things have consistently stayed pretty good. We have our ups and downs, but all in all, we pretty much keep it together on the co-parenting front. So I'm very, very happy about that and happy to still report that and to report that, we keep a very tame, good co-parenting relationship. Now, the next biggest question I always get asked on social media is about my divorce and the divorce process. How's that going? Details about it. And I just wanted to say this again on like another platform, even though I say it every single time. Unfortunately, divorces are legally very complex, right? And there is a lot of rules and restrictions around the discussion of a divorce when it is in proceedings, okay? So when you are still going through it, it hasn't been settled, there hasn't been an agreement been reached, you're actually legally not allowed to say very much at all. And that is due to the expectation of confidentiality between the two parties and also because family law is confidential, right? So that's why like if you look at like family law court, you can't go in and just do a public sitting in a family court. Whereas like you could walk down to the Supreme Court at any day of the week and go and watch any of the processes that are going through any of the proceedings that are going through the Supreme Court because it's public knowledge, right? It's open. Family court doesn't do that. And the biggest reason for that is for like the child's well-being and the child's protection, right? Is people we decided as a society and a legal system that we kind of didn't want children and the proceedings that go around children, just out in the open for everyone to see and know and learn about and judge and speculate and whatever. So that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect is just in a legal proceeding, stuff is confidential until it's been finalized. And so I can't really talk about anything other than like, yes, I am going through that process right now. And that's pretty much it. And that sometimes can feel silencing and frustrating because there are bits that I would love to share. But, once everything is settled and that process is done, there will still be some things that you're just never allowed to talk about. Unfortunately, that is just the reality of legal proceedings. But there will be some bits that I can discuss and I will be really hopeful that I can, do an episode or a couple of episodes around the process of divorce and the things that I learned and some of the ins and outs of that. But at the moment, that is just something that is not possible for me. Unfortunately, family proceedings and, family law is a very, very slow process, okay? Especially when there are a bit more complexities than maybe like the average case. It can take a while. It is a very draining process and it can really affect you emotionally and mentally. So my biggest thing is like, if you know anyone that is currently going through a divorce, please tread so lightly with them because they are probably going through a very stressful time. Not even saying that the other person is making it stressful for them. It is just stressful dealing with lawyers, dealing with paperwork, doing a lot of the ins and outs. It's very time consuming. There is a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of admin, a lot of just work and time. And that can be really draining when, especially people who have dependents, like you're already single parenting, you're already working a lot to, live on a single income, you're looking after children, whatever. And then you have this other layer that's added to it. It is very, very draining. Also the point of being in limbo, so kind of not being either or, it being in the process can be very complex. You kind of feel like you're on the in-between. You're kind of like untangling your past while at the same time trying to rebuild for your future. And that can be very confusing to be in that both worlds, like a foot in both worlds at the same time. It can be very hard. It's very raw. So yeah, if you know anyone that's going through divorce, even a creator that that's going through it, just be so gentle with them, tread so softly and lightly because they might be going through something really hard and they physically cannot discuss it. or they cannot disclose it with anyone. Yeah, it's a very weird and complex sort of situation to go through. And I think anyone who, maybe practices in the space or works in the space of, marital breakdown or has gone through it would really understand just how confusing and strange the grief process is that comes with divorce and the chapter of going through the divorce process and trying to finalize things. And it feels quite weird for your relationship to kind of be broken down to the point of like, divvying things up and discussing really very, clinical types of discussions about a relationship that, at the time, of course, did not feel like that. You don't feel like there's any quantitative indicators or qualitative indicators of your relationship or how things should go, or, it's very confusing. It's very complex. And yeah, I hope one day I will be able to discuss it more. But right now, I really can't say anything. And I'm not sure when this process will be over. At this point, I don't have like a definitive timeline where I'm like, oh, by this time, everything will probably be settled, or I'm not there yet. So I wish I could discuss that more, but that's about the most I can say. So for everyone who keeps asking, I am just going to shoot them over to this podcast episode in the future and just be like, hey, I do like a really quick discussion about why I can't talk about the divorce and, where I'm at with the divorce. Now, the biggest thing that I actually wanted to kind of discuss in this episode and give you guys the biggest update about, because I ummed and ahed about how do I discuss this? What is the easiest way for me to talk about this journey with my audience? And I thought the podcast is probably the best because I can go into the most uninterrupted detail. And that is, I am actually now on a diagnosis journey for PMDD, which is post-menstrual dysphoric disorder. PMDD is a disorder that has a very strong comorbidity with people who are neurodivergent, so women who have autism or ADHD, or in my case, both. It is a disorder that pretty much links with your menstrual cycle, and in a nutshell, what it is when your estrogen levels drop. So usually in the week before your period, people with PMDD can go through very low depressive episodes for that week. Usually very common symptoms of PMDD is not just PMS, it's quite extreme distressing situations, so suicidal ideation, yes, big depressive episodes, just really crashing and burning, and then that happening every single month the week before your period. I'm actually not sure why there seems to be a link between people with autism and ADHD. I'm still actually learning about this process myself. We only started the investigations to see if I have it as of 2 weeks ago. So it had been mentioned to me quite a number of times since being diagnosed autistic and ADHD, how do you feel around your period? And I had said many, many times to my care team, no, I feel fine. I feel like everything's good. One, I think part of that was, I didn't get my period back after having Bennie for quite a long time. So for a while there, I wasn't having a menstrual cycle. So I was like, no, I don't have problems with my menstrual cycle. I hadn't really had a period in 2 and a bit years. So I didn't have much data to reflect back on. I couldn't really remember, what I felt like the last couple of times I had a period before having children, because between Bennie and Rosie, I only had 2 periods or 3 periods, I think. So yeah, I didn't really have data to go off. And then I kind of, started taking my medication, and that disrupted my natural period quite a bit. And then when I left my marriage, I got a Mirena, and that was just pretty much a thing that my gynecologist recommended to me. Being single, having a history of postpartum depression, and anxiety, and a lot of health issues around pregnancy. An accidental pregnancy would not have been something that would have been ideal for me, or something that I could have handled, to be honest, especially in a situation of high stress already. So even though I was not sexually active, quite soon after separating from my husband, my whole care team kind of got involved and was like, we want to get you on, the best type of birth control for you, because when you are ready to, be sexually active, we do not want accidental pregnancy to be an issue that we have to then deal with. And I totally respected that, said, yep, got the Mirena in. And then when you get a Mirena, it really disrupts your cycle for quite a long time. It took me a couple months for it to like settle in. And then once it settled in, I did start to notice like, oh shit, like the week before my period, I feel like crap. And my clinical psychologist kept asking me about it, but I think I was in such denial about the idea of having another diagnosis. Like, keep in mind, I've gotten 2 diagnoses in the last 12 months already, right? I've got autistic and ADHD, and I just found that overwhelming enough as it is. I just really was like, I don't want a 3rd diagnosis. Not that there's anything wrong with having PMDD, not that it's, something to feel shameful about. It's not something that I even have control over. I just was in this mindset of like, I cannot have like something else on my plate right now. So I kept saying to her like, no, I feel fine. It's all good. I'm not feeling that way. And then unfortunately recently I did have a month where I had a very low. I was very depressed. I felt suicidal. I felt like I was just over everything and I couldn't do this. And then about like 2 days later, I got my period. I woke up and I was like, oh, I feel great again. And then I was like, oh, shit. Maybe I should mention this in my therapy appointment. I brought it up with my therapist and she was like, I told you. I knew I could see these patterns happening, but I was letting you come to me when you were ready, because she was like, I pushed a few times and you really pushed back on it. Then I had an appointment with my psychiatrist. Him and I had a discussion about the potential of maybe having PMDD. And now I am on the journey of strict cycle tracking. So I have been asked to get some type of like body tracking device. So I used to have an Apple Watch. My girls lost that Apple Watch, so I don't have that now. My psychiatrist and clinical psychologist did recommend potentially getting an Aura ring, linking it with my Natural Cycles app, which I have used for years and years and years, and really intensely tracking my cycle on the Natural Cycles app. Not sponsored. I just really love this app, have used it for years and years, and it is TGA approved. Is it TGA in Australia or whatever what is the Australian one? Let's have a look. This is where it'd be great to have a producer who can like check all this stuff for me so I don't have to stop mid-episode. Yes, it is TGA. I was correct. So Natural Cycles is the only TGA approved form of cycle tracking. So it has like a type of algorithm that makes it a legitimate form of contraception if you want to use it as contraception, but it is just very scientifically advanced form of cycle tracking. It has a IP protected algorithm that makes its accuracy like really insane, but its app is just very developed. It has a lot of features for you to track emotions and moods and whatever. Again, not sponsored in any single way. I do not work with Natural Cycles, just an honest user of them. I got Natural Cycles when I was, maybe 20, after it was actually recommended to me by my gynecologist, because unfortunately I suffer from migraines, which surprise, surprise, is actually a symptom of PMDD, or there's like a comorbidity between people who have migraines and people who have postmenstrual dysphoric disorder. So that explains a lot, especially people who've had migraines since like their youth. So I started getting migraines when I was like 10 or 11, which kind of shows that they are hormonally like connected or linked. Anyway, because I got migraines, I can't take the contraceptive pill, and I had some issues at the time with weight gain, and I thought it was connected to the Mirena. It wasn't in the end. I was just depressed. But so I got my Mirena removed when I was like 20, because I had one when I was 19, 20. And then my gynecologist was like, okay, well, if you're not really leaning towards hormonal contraception, let's try this, app. This is the only one I'm saying. Do not use Flow. Do not use like any of those other type of trackers. It has to be Natural Cycles because it's TGA approved and it has this much of an accuracy rating, whatever. And since then I've used the app to track my cycle, and I confidently used it to avoid pregnancy for 6 years. And then I used it to plan my pregnancy with both of my children very accurately. So it's a fantastic app. Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track and I'm rambling a bit and doing a bit of like a free sponsorship for bloody Natural Cycles. Yeah, so pretty much I have ordered an Oura Ring, which not cheap. Why didn't anyone tell me how expensive those freaking things are? I only did it because it was like really pushed by my care team that because it links with the app directly, I don't have to remember to enter in a lot of the data. It tracks my cycle very, very accurately and will make my emotion tracking very accurate. But yeah, freaking cost me an arm and a leg for that thing. Let me tell you, I will not be letting my girls lose that. And yeah, I'm starting the process now. I have to give them 6 months of data, of period tracking data before they are able to definitively say if I have PMDD or not, for me to be diagnosed by my psychiatrist and I guess my clinical psychologist. They kind of work together in tandem, which is kind of annoying a little bit because that's a really long time, but I totally understand why they need to be able to check that there is a pattern. It also makes it a bit complicated because I have such high external stresses. So, you know, going through a divorce is a very externally stressful thing. Being a single mother is very, very externally stressful. So they have to be really careful with this diagnosis and ensure that they are giving me the right thing and that I'm not going through these roller coasters of emotions because of external factors. My clinical psychologist is very confident. I see her every 2 weeks. So she sees a lot of me. So I feel confident in her confidence. But yes, it's very overwhelming. I know very little about the diagnosis or the disorder. I had heard of it. I've seen a few TikToks here and there. I do have a friend, Emily, who has it. So I'd had like some discussions around it, but it is going to be something that I guess I will have to be investigating and deep diving into myself. And I started to discuss like, what are some treatment options and like, what can we do about it? I felt very discouraged when I started to discuss that with my care team because there is not a lot of research around it and there is not a lot of definitive treatment plans. And that's really scary because you feel so crappy every single month. Like it's scary to know that potentially I have a disorder that every single month I am going to feel so very, very low and sad for the rest of my, fertile life until I go through menopause. I guess like this is going to be a reality for me, and that's very overwhelming and very daunting. Yeah, just to know that like, oh, I'm going to feel very upset and very down and very low. The problem is as well, external factors can exacerbate it. I've also been told that Vyvanse can exacerbate it, which I'm a bit worried about because I feel like my Vyvanse medication, which is the medication I take for my ADHD, is very, very helpful for me. I've found that it has really, really helped me. I don't want to change medications, but, I'm scared that maybe that is making the symptoms worse. When I really briefly shared it on Instagram, I got a bit overwhelmed by a lot of the messages I received and a lot of people, saying like, do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. It was very overwhelming. And I find, especially talking around mental health with people online can be quite overwhelming and it can be a lot of noise, and I just really have to focus on what my care team is telling me and what I'm learning through them, because unfortunately, even though people could be giving me the best suggestions, when you're getting overwhelmed with hundreds of people weighing in, you can feel very dismotivated, unmotivated, and just overwhelmed. And so sometimes I have to just like block it out and be like, okay, I know what you're sharing is probably amazing, but I can't take it in right now, and I just need to listen to my care team. Yeah, I think it's really validating to know that potentially there is reasons why I have always felt like I go through very ups and downs emotionally, but I have in the past, I've been tested for borderline personality disorder. I don't qualify for it. I've been tested for bipolar. I don't qualify for that either. I do have a family history of bipolar. Actually, there's multiple people in my family who have bipolar, hence why I got tested for it. When I was doing all my other diagnoses, they kind of like go through a lot and kind of check for a lot of things before they give you one diagnosis over another. And yes, I didn't qualify for either of those two, but I do feel like I do have big emotional roller coasters, and I couldn't really understand why sometimes I felt really, really good, and then quite quickly afterwards I felt really, really bad. Like, not like I had these big long episodes of feeling really good and long episodes of feeling really bad. It would be like 1 week up, next week down, next week up again. And that was very confusing for me. So it feels validating that potentially there could be a reason why that is the case, but then it's also overwhelming. I kind of feel like my brain has turned into a bit of a like Russian babushka doll, you know, the ones where it's like you start with the big one and then you open it up, there's another one inside, you open up, there's another one inside, and you keep doing that for layers and layers and layers. This process of bettering my mental health lately has kind of felt like that. You know, like I feel like I started with postpartum depression, right? And it turned out that my postpartum depression was the result of me masking pretty much everything. So, you know, my whole life before having kids, I had just like pretended everything was fine, masked all my issues. I got postpartum depression. They started treating the postpartum depression, and then it kind of like opened. That was like the first layer. They opened that up and they're like, oh, you have postpartum depression because you actually have ADHD and you're so burnt out that, yeah, you've gone into this depressive episode after becoming a mother and being overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, cool, great. Started treating me for ADHD, got my ADHD kind of under control. All my autism came out, right? Which is very, very common. You know, lots of women who start treating their ADHD suddenly find that they are autistic and have a lot of autistic traits that get masked by their ADHD. So then they're like, oh, you're autistic as well. So then, you know, I've started working and doing therapy around autism. And then it's like, oh, okay, now that we're sorting all of that, looks like you also have a bit of PMDD. And I'm like, oh my God, how many diagnoses can one poor girl have? Like, how much wrong with my brain can I have? It's so overwhelming. Like, I'm so very grateful to be able to be privileged enough that I can get help for my mental health. I know there are a lot of people out there who cannot. And, you know, I don't want to sound ungrateful for having access to those resources, but it is very overwhelming to just feel like you're in a season where they're constantly digging up things that are wrong with you when you really want to start getting into the maintenance section of your mental health, right? Like, for the last 2 years, I have not been able to do any maintenance skills because I keep discovering like new things that are wrong with me. And, you know, there is a lot of stigma around mental health, especially sharing online. I know people also judge me and criticize me, you know, for having quite a few complex things that are going on with me. And, you know, I try not to take that on board, and I try not to feel any shame or embarrassment, but it can be hard, especially in the motherhood space where there is so much judgment and you kind of have this expectation to be perfect, you know, all the time. And that is just not the reality of my situation, unfortunately. And that is also a hard thing to sort of process and go through. It's been a lot to go through. It's been a lot to work through. I know I have an even longer journey ahead of me, which is, you know, sort of sad. I also get very nervous to share about my mental health online because it always comes with so much criticism. And, you know, people being like, oh, she's just doing this for a trend or for views. And I'm like, I wish. Like, actually, who wants to be mentally ill for a trend? I don't know anyone. Like, I don't know anyone who would choose to struggle with these things. I would much rather be boring and mentally healthy, you know? So yeah, I feel like though, aside from that, my mental health is doing okay. I'm very proud of the fact that I have stayed consistent with my therapy and my treatment in, you know, the last 8 months, nearly 9 months. Like, I have really hustled to make sure I've been able to afford to keep going to therapy because, you know, I pay for all of that independently. And yeah, I'm very proud of that achievement. And yeah, I'm proud that I've continued to show up for myself and prioritize my mental health because honestly, it is something that could have easily been put on the back burner for me. And I have had to remind myself time and time again how important it is to not put it on the back burner, to keep showing up for myself, to keep prioritizing myself, to be the best version of myself that I could be. So I'm proud that I've been able to do that. I am hoping I won't have to do as much mental health care maybe next year, and not be hemorrhaging out money on therapy and appointments to do with that. But I'm proud of my commitment to it. And even when it feels overwhelming, I'm proud that I've continued to show up. They were the biggest things I wanted to discuss this week and give you guys all a little life update on, so you're in the know of what's going on for me and what my life is looking like and how things are going. I've really loved just sitting here and having a little chat. This week we do have an After Dark episode, which is going to be released tomorrow, which I'm also very excited for you guys to listen to because you absolutely loved our last After Dark episode. So I'm hoping you enjoy this one just as much. If this is, one of your first times listening to an Up Past Bedtime episode, please come and follow us on Spotify, come follow us on TikTok, come follow us on Instagram. If you're a long-term listener and you haven't already, can you please give us a rating or a review? That helps so much. Recommend us to your friends, post about us on your social media. That is all extremely, extremely helpful for me and the amount of love, time and effort, energy I put into this podcast. But I will be having a beautiful guest for you all next week, which I'm very excited to share with you. But until then, I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. Sweet dreams.